So next thing is data types. So while I was declaring some variables, you might have noticed that I have set some values called U32, I32, and I also said that there is something called a string. So data types usually specify what kind of values can be passed into a variable, right? So only a certain type of variable, so like a variable could be only passed with certain type of data. For example, a particular variable, like say let x, only allows you to take the different integer values. Then you can specify I32 or I8 or something like that. So you cannot pass a string into that variable. Okay, so when we specify a data type using static typing, okay, when you use a static typing, then you specify the data type, that means you cannot change the data type. So once you said let x equal to, like x I32 equal to 5, then you cannot pass a float into the x value. Okay, it is not possible until and unless you use a parse function, which is an exception that you will discuss later. Now data held by a variable could be of some standard type, and data type is very important as it kind of determines what kind of data shall be accepted by the variable and what should be rejected. Okay, now we will see that there are two different kinds of data types. Sorry, scalar types and compound types. Now scalar types means it only takes a single value. Okay, can only take a single value. If you see that the unsigned and signed, unsigned means it only allows positive numbers. Signed means it allows both positive and negative numbers. Okay, now this 8, 16, 32, 64, 128 uses these all stuff means the size. This is the number of bits that it requires to store it. Okay, now floating point means you can have decimal point numbers. Okay, and that could be 32-bit or 64-bit. Now you have booleans. Booleans means what is the value, like is it true or is it false? So it has two values, true and false. Then you have characters. Characters is could be an emoji or any other character like C, A, B, C, D, anything. And in compound types, it can have multiple values. So it's actually a combination where you can have multiple values to the compound type. And you see, compound type is tuples and arrays. Most of you might have heard of the like data type arrays. Arrays is actually a list of numbers or list of particular strings. Okay, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is actually a list of numbers from range 1 to 5, right? So that is an array, and that's a tuple. Tuple is actually similar to array, but there is some differences because you cannot change the size of a tuple, and tuples are immutable in nature. Okay, so they have strict data type specification, and it needs to be kept in order to work with the compound types. Okay, I will show you some examples regarding the different data types. I think we have it here. So we have discussed initially about the scalar type, which only takes single value, and the single value example could be let x u8 is equal to 4, let x I8 is equal to minus 21. So as you can see the difference, the 4 here is actually a positive value, and this u8 means unsigned, only positive values are possible. So if I try to assign minus 100 in the x value position, then it would show an error. Okay, so I'm not going to like execute and show the error. Okay, you just need to know that when you are assigning a particular, like say at x is only going to take u8, then it can only take u8. Okay, so you cannot like put minus 100. You can try it yourself by placing a data type u8 and then trying to pass a negative number. It is not possible. And if you try to do it y, y can take any value between this negative to positive of 8-bit numbers. 8-bit numbers means 2 power 8. Now x equal to 2.0 is actually dynamically taking the f64 by default, and then f32 is actually floating point number definition. Okay, now let sum equal to 5 plus 10. So now we are showing some operations. I think you must have, like, you can easily understand all these operations. They does not require much explanation because it's just addition. So let sum is equal to 5 plus 10. We'll have the value of sum being set to the sum of the expression, that is 5 plus 10. And that is sum will be having a value 15. The difference will be having a value 95.5 minus 4.3. I think the answer is 91.2. And then multiplication, 4 star 30. So you get the product value to be what is the multiplied value. Then that would be the value of the variable product. Okay. And quotient, you can do it by 56. This is a direct division. So what you will get would be a floating point number. Okay. And reminder, this is the reminder symbol. Okay. And this is the division symbol, which will return you the quotient, and this will return you the remainder. Okay. So the percentage symbol in any language will give you the remainder. And t is equal to true. This is the Boolean data type. So these variables contain only two different types of data type. That is not only two different kinds of data. That is either it is true or it is false. Okay. Now this is a character. Character is any like a single character. And you can see this is also a single character. And you can also use an emoji as a character. Okay. So Rust allows you to use an emoji as a character. And you can also print it into the screen. So that was a character. Now an emoji is also a character because these are all like encoded in UTF-8. So it's all possible for you to use as a character. Now we talked about the compound types, which can take multiple values of same data type or different data type. Now, as I've specified before, a tuple allows you to have a list of different variables. Okay, a list of different variables, but once set, you cannot change its value. So you cannot access its value and then change its value. Okay, so you can access its value, but you cannot change its value because they are immutable by definition. Now, you can like, this is the static way of like setting the tuple. That is, you let tup and then you specify the data type. Now, why is it being specified like this? So, as I have said before, tuples are usually represented using this brackets. Okay, so it's usually like, as you can see, the first number is an integer, next one is a float, and again we have an integer. So the data type for this variable that I would specify is, after placing this colon, I can just type what is the initial number that I want to take is of a type I32. So I can include positive and negative numbers. Now I want a floating point number. So like say F64 is my second data type that I want to place. And for the third data type, I only want a positive number. Then I can place U8, right? So now this tuple allows you to take three different values only, and those three different values should be of the data type, the initial one being I32, the second one being F64, and the third one being U8 in that order itself. Okay, so the ordering is important. The data type at each portion is important, and tuples are by default immutable. That means you cannot change its size. That is, they cannot grow or shrink its size. Now, let x, y, z equal to 2, then that means what happens? This is called as destructuring. Destructuring means you have created a tuple. Now you're just using let x, y, z equal to tuple. Now what happens is the positional arguments get passed into x, y, z rightly. So x would get the value 500, y would get the value 6.4, and z would get the value 1. Because the positions are matched. Okay, the positions are matched. And if you want to print it, you can use the println y is this function. And yeah, so you can access each of its contents using this. Tup.0 will allow you to access 500. Tup.1 will allow you to access 6.4, and tup.2 will allow you to access 1. Okay, so I will show you an example regarding the tuples because it might be important for you to understand what is tuples. And yeah, because tuples are being used in different areas, and the main area being to specify the image processing tools. Okay, that means you specify the RGB values that are present at each pixel in your system. So these RGB values are actually specified using the tuples. So the first value for the, like say, let color is equal to like say 255, 255, 255. So this is one representation. Okay, now I'm not specifying the data type here because I told you that you can use both methods. You can use dynamic or static. I'm using dynamic. So what happens is, now let color equal to 255, 250. If you know image processing, then you know that this is the maximum values for all the RGB, right? So each color, R is at its highest intensity, B is at its highest intensity, and G is at. So this should return white, I guess so. Okay, so so this is the idea in image processing, and we will use it to println the color. Okay. So now what happens? You can see, I don't think it's possible for you to see the contents without a debug macro. Okay, we will see what is a debug macro. Data types. You might be string literal to format it. Yeah, I think we need this one. Okay, color. Yeah, so now they have cannot be of the formatted with the default formatter. Yeah, so that is where we will use the debug format. Now I wanted to show you that you cannot display an array or a tuple by using the normal formatter. So you want this debug formatter to be added along with the normal formatter to display the types. Now you can see there is no error. I will try to execute it. Dot slash data. Yeah. So you can see the output, right? 255, 251, 2. So that is the idea. I think it is clear. Now we'll see that in the case of an array. Okay. So what is an array? Okay, you can take each element by using the positional argument. Okay. Tab.0 will give you the first element. Tab.1 will give you the second element. And tab.2 will give you the third element. So you might be knowing that in tuples and in arrays, the index will start from 0. Index is the position. So the first element will have an index 0. The second element will have an index 1. The third element will have an index 2. Okay. So this is to assign the value of each of the positional argument. Now we have array. Array is actually a list of elements, but the problem is array can only have a single data type for its elements. Okay. So these things, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all of these belong to a single data type, and that is numbers, right? And numbers could be of different size. It could be 32-bit, it could be 16-bit, it could be 8-bit according to your wish. So now we will define, let A, this is static typing. If you don't want to type it in static, like if you don't want to do it, then you can actually directly write a array like this. But there could be a situation where you want to declare an array before and then insert its values. Okay. That means initially you will set, okay, this is I32 5. I32 5 means the data type. The first thing that you specify is the data type. So only I am supposed to add I32 elements into the array. The second thing that I am adding in the variable declaration or definition would be the number of terms allotted for the array A. So now you can see that you can only allot 5 elements in the array. Okay. Now if I add an sixth element, okay, if I add a sixth element, then it should most probably give me an error. You don't want to look at mismatch types. You see, I32 5 expected an array with a fixed size of 5 elements, but found 6 elements. Okay. So if you set the size, then you are not supposed to change the size. Now, that was the idea. So you can solve this error by placing 6 here. Okay, so you allow 6 elements and the data type should be I32. So what happens if I place 2.0 here? Okay, if I place 2.0, then that should also give me an error. As you can see, expected I32 found a floating point number. Okay, so you're only supposed to use that data type, that is I32 number. Okay, now this error can be removed by applying F64 because that would not generate an error. F64 and you are using the integer. So each of the integer should be then converted to a floating point number. Like you need to place a 1.0, need to place 3.0, need to place 4.0, and you should do it for each and every element in order to make it of that type. Okay, 64. Now if you see the output, okay, now you do not have that error, right? Okay, this error actually belongs to the previous one because I just deleted a data type from this one. Like I need to place it. And there's no error. Yeah, so these things are warnings, and warnings usually do not pose any problem for execution. Okay. So in order to access an element of an array, you need to use this square bracket and specify the index of the element. So A0 can be used to access in the first element, that is 1. And A1 can be used to access the second element, and that is 2. Okay. Now, that is the idea. So you can access any element that is between the index 0 to n minus 1, where n is the size of the array. So if the size of the array is 5, then it can have indexes from 0 to 4 only, because you start from 0. The maximum number of elements is 5. So it starts from 0 to 4. Okay. First element is AF0, second element is AF1. Now, to initialize an array with all the same value, then you can use this methodology. So that if you specify 0, 10 as the value of an array A, and what happens is the number of elements in this array would be 10, and each and every element would be initially set to 0. Okay, so I will show you the example. I need to just compile, and then you will have a dot slash background. So after initialization, you can see after initialization with the 0, see the array is 0, 0, 0, 0. So it contains how many values? We specified 10, right? So it will contain 10 zeros. So it will create an array of size 10 with its default value as 10. So that is how we do it. Okay, so the default value is specified and then the number of values are specified. Okay. Now you need to use the debug in order to print it. Okay. Now this is how to take an string input. Okay, we will discuss it if required at the end of the session. Now, I think we have discussed the data types.